I'm Shanna Riker. I'm a writer, director, producer, and I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. Shanna, what brought you to Phoenix?
So I entered my script, Blood Splattered Pearls, in the We Script competition.
Exactly.
And I got a lovely email. And Gutier.
Yeah.
I've been saying your name wrong.
Perfect.
Gutier. And I was like, yeah, I will definitely go to a film festival the weekend after Thanksgiving. Why not? And I haven't spent a ton of time in Phoenix, so I'm having a great time so far.
Cool. Shanna, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Actually, your presence added like something really interesting to the film festival. And this is our goal, to just, make people network and bring people together. Shanna, let's talk about your script.
Yeah.
Tell us, what's it about without spoiling the end?
Without spoiling the end. So, Blood Splattered Pearls, right now it's in short form. I'm currently adapting it into a feature, which I plan to shoot later, but it's about Darla. First of all, Darla is a 25-year-old who has moved to New York, and she has found herself with a very wealthy, very abusive boyfriend.
Okay.
And they have an altercation, and she flees, thinking she has killed him. And she goes to her grandmother's house in rural Texas. And while she's there, she discovers that her grandmother and friends, all widows, may have their own skeletons buried in the garden.
Oh, wow. Okay, so is it a thriller? Is it a horror?
It's in short form right now. I would classify it as a psychological thriller.
Okay, I love psychological thrillers.
Yeah, it really just gets in there,
exactly.
right? And also it's kind of like, with psychological thrillers, the monster is someone you know. It could be someone at your coffee shop, or at your church in this case, or anywhere. And I think that having real monsters is sort of fascinating.
Yeah.
I think when it's finished as a feature, I think it will reign as a psychological thriller, but also have some, family drama, and also some elements. I'm trying to incorporate some just sort of classic slasher, so it's kind of be mostly psychological thriller, but then kind of all of the above. Because it really is about family, too, at the core.
Yeah. What was your motivation to write this script?
A few things.
Yeah.
I was on the subway one day, and the title just came to me. And I wrote it down, and I was like, what is that? What is that, right?
We're filmmakers, we get ideas from, maybe someone walking past us, a tree. We're like,
anytime you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I wrote it down, and I carried this title around for almost a year. And I was just, because I was working on some other things, and I was like, what is this? And then as a writer, I realized that I had never really written Southern women, and I grew up in the South, and I've lived in New York for a very long time. It's home, but I grew up in the South, and I think that I really wanted to portray them correctly. I feel like Southern women still, we've made some progress, but I feel like they kind of get this stigma in media, right? And there's only maybe one or two types of them, and they're both sort of caricatures. So there's the debutante and the belle, and then there's the real country, but I think that growing up in the South, and my grandmother would she would make tomato relish, and her next door neighbor was a gardener, and in the middle of our city suburb, she had her corner lot, and she would bring tomatoes, and I grew pumpkins there when I was a kid. And so I really just wanted to, first and foremost, sort of tell honest Southern women. And I also, I think that there's a lot of important themes in Blood Splattered Pearls. Family is first and foremost, right? And also a sisterhood of women. But also I think that it's getting less taboo to talk about being in abusive relationships and being a victim of abuse and domestic violence, but I think that it's still not quite there. I think that there's still conversations that need to be had about it, and I think that there's still so much stigma around it. It's still sort of a taboo topic, and I wanted to just out there with this taboo topic that is also very centered around family and sisterhood.
Cool. You know, it's always interesting to talk about psychological thrillers because first you gotta have like, you know, the topic and then the characters, and then tell me more about the build-up of the character in the story.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've been in feature mode with it for so long, like working on that, and I found, you know, this really sort of interesting muse that I'm using to write the feature. But as far as the character, I feel like Darla starts out as this sort of lost, wandering, you know, she's probably lived in quite a few cities and sort of just is always attracted to the wrong man and is always looking for love in the wrong places, right? And so she gets this opportunity to go be with her family and also meets a guy who is lovely and kind and nothing like any man she's ever dated. And I feel like once you find a person that isn't cloaked in red flags, and I think that it's very hard to keep them. It's very hard to somehow not slip back into, I need this adventure of the bad person, right? And, you know, because you go through a whole phase where, okay, you don't want that anymore, but then you keep finding it. And then you have to realize, like, no, I can't.
It's a pattern.
Red flags are not good. They don't look good. So I need to avoid them.
Hear this? Red flags are not good.
Avoid them. If they're flying, run away. Run away. But yeah, so I think she has a lot of growth, definitely. And she sort of comes to terms with a lot of generational trauma that is, interestingly enough, a phrase that I've just started hearing in the last few years in media, which I think is great, and I think that people are addressing it, and I think TikTok has sort of been maybe a stimulus for that in a lot of ways. But I feel like she and her grandmother and even perhaps her mother that left when she was very young, they all end up addressing this generational trauma and then just overcoming everything and every obstacle and just banding together and, you know, dealing with their skeletons in the closet.
Cool. Sean, do you have any favorite movie, like thriller, psychological thriller, favorite movie?
Ooh. Well, my favorite movie of all time is The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Not at all. Well, it's kind of psychological.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
And then I think my second favorite movie is Reservoir Dogs.
Okay.
But psychological thriller. You know what? I'll be honest. I don't watch a ton of them. Because they scare me. They get in my head, and like I said, the monsters that can be real, right? There was one, which I guess is more horror, and it came out quite a few years ago now, but it's called The Skeleton Key. Kate Hudson was in it, and it's always just kind of stuck with me. Like, it scared the life out of me.
Wow.
Just because it was so messed up, you know, and like it's just one of those scenarios where you think you're safe, and then nothing around you is what it seems. You know, it was a bit witchcraft, so I don't really know if it's psychological, but it definitely, like, I mean, I probably saw it 20 years ago. It's still there, you know, and I still sort of think about what they accomplished with that film. So I think that one's on the list.
Cool. Shauna, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're gonna have this interview on YouTube. So if you go on We Film Festival, and we're gonna have it on TikTok as well, on Instagram. Everywhere, kind of.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
And it was nice meeting you, and then you know, say hello to all our fellows in New York, in Phoenix, everywhere in this world, and I'll be seeing you around.
Yes.
Cool.
Do we have 2 more minutes?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because I feel like I have to.
Go ahead.
So I have a production company. I formed it with my friend Melissa Bronsky.
Okay.
And it's called Honey and Hemlock.
Okay.
And we have 2 shorts that we produced and directed that we just now started submitting to film festivals. So one of those is definitely a psychological thriller,
Yeah.
and one is definitely like just a very intimate drama.
Yeah.
But I figure if I had 2 minutes, I wanted to plug myself.
Sure. I'd love to see that in the Fantasy Film Festival in Paris, because we have like thriller genre, category. It's really so interesting for us.
It's solitarity is
Yeah.
that's the psychological. So it's if depression were to manifest in your living room as a human-like entity,
Oh, wow.
and you're forced to just deal with it right there in your face.
Wow.
And
This
then
is interesting.
Spaceman is the other one, since we're here and he
Yeah.
hasn't kicked me out yet. It follows Bobby on his first date after escaping an abusive marriage in which he was the victim of domestic violence.
Okay. This is
So-
interesting as well, a topic that we started just talking about.
Even more taboo than
Yeah.
women.
Yeah, yeah.
So we just started submitting them
Yeah.
to festivals. So we're
Cool.
hoping to have a very festival-filled
I hope so.
year next year. And if you
Yeah.
guys are open, we will send them your way. Yeah, this is awesome. But
Cool.
you guys have done an amazing job.
Thank
and
you, Shauna.
I feel like family.
Yeah, of course you are. Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you around.